Bienvenidos al curso Módulo de Competitividad 10, código FG708. Esta es la semana número 7. The topics for today are: first, sugarcane diseases; second, some coffee diseases; and third, bean diseases. This is Professor Elio Ochoa Escobar. Let's continue with the class. Here we have our class objectives, and the number one is study some specific manuals in order to get knowledge about some diseases that damage crops in our country. The number two is identify some diseases that affect crops such as sugarcane, coffee, maize, beans, and potatoes. And the number three we have here is to learn how to prevent and control some diseases regarding the plants we harvest in Guatemala. Let's go ahead. And here we have the first plant that we will be analyzing, and this is the sugarcane, and we will check the stem fungal disease. The first disease that we have here is the sugarcane charcoal. We have the causal agent, that this is a Sporisodium cytimenum, and we also have the symptoms, and the characteristic symptom is a whip-like structure at the apex of the infected stems. We will check this on figures 1, 2, and 3. Let me make a zoom to check these photos here, and here we have these whips here and here, and also we can see another one here, and this and this, and let me check also here in the apical part of these plants. Let's continue. Such a structure is initially covered by a thin, shiny membrane that, when ruptured, allows the release of dark brown or black to the eye spores. And the other names for these spores are teleospores, and we will see these spores at figures 5 and 6. When the whip has lost its spore coat, it is corky in appearance and light brown in color, and we will see this on figure number 7. In some cases, infection occurs in lateral bulbs, and then small lateral whips can be observed on developed shoots, although the apical bulb may have normal growth. Let's go ahead. And when this infection occurs in the bulbs of the split pieces, like we can see here in the figure number 4, the emergent stems are slender. We can see a small whip here, and it's a black color. And in this case, the appearance of the vine may be saccatous, like we see in figure number 3, and the leaves are thin and erect, all these even before the whip emerges. Let's continue. Transmission and dissemination of this stem fungal disease It occurs when wind or rain dislodges the spores and carries them to neighboring plants or neighboring plantings. The spores germinate and infect the buds, and the infection can remain latent until the next cycle when the stem pieces are used as seed in other fields, or can cause the appearance of lateral whips in the same cycle in which the infection occurred. The importance, it is one of the most potentially damaging diseases since whole tillers can be lost in apical infections. Remember that the sugar cane is a big industry that here in Guatemala farmers are working with, because Guatemala is a big provider of sugar around the world. So it's important to know about this disease and how to control and prevent these factors. Let me go ahead. Some pharma control of this charcoal, they recommend an option that is the use of resistant varieties. Some management methods, such as seed treatment with hot water and fungicides or elimination of diseased plants, have shown little effectiveness. So the best recommendation that they say is the use of resistant varieties. This disease is caused by an organism that produces brown spores. We see these brown spores here with this picture that was taken by a microscopic picture. And also we have to your right an example of this whip here, and the black spores where this black whip is emerging. Let's continue. Another disease that is caused by this fungal is the dry cane. The causal agent is called Cephalosporium sachari, and the common name is Fusarium sachari. And here we have the symptoms. This disease is characterized by yellowing and drying of the foliage, followed by constriction, shrinkage or shriveling, and death of the apices that we will see in figures 9 and 10. Diseased canes show a reddish brown coloration in the inner part of the internodes. We will see these characteristics on the next slides. Here we can see the yellowing and drying of the foliage because this foliage was dead, and this leaf here is with the yellowing color because of the damage of this fungus. Here we can see a death of the apices, and this stem is completely dead. So at the bottom of this picture, we can see that this small wound here helps this fungus to enter the sugar cane. After this sugar cane was infected, we can see that it began to present this black or brown color between the internodes as I mentioned before. Go ahead. Let's go ahead. The importance. In India, it is the second most important disease after charcoal. In Guatemala, it is currently the most important disease since the CP88-1165 variety that is the most cultivated at the end of the first decade of the 2000s, and it is susceptible, which resulted in heavy losses. So this is so important for us to know about this disease, because here in Guatemala, this type of disease is causing big losses and also unsustainable systems. And now we're talking about how to control this type of disease, and they mention that the option is using resistant varieties. In addition, the application of measures to facilitate water drainage in areas with this problem, since excess moisture favors the development of the fungus and limits the development of the plant. So the recommended option is using the resistant varieties. Let's continue. And now we're going to analyze the coffee roast. We also know that coffee is a big industry here in our country, because we know that coffee is a product that farmers are exporting around the world, because Guatemala has a good position sending coffee around the world. And the rust is a disease caused by the fungus Hemilia vastatrix, which causes economic losses, as I mentioned. It mainly affects plantation of Caturra, Catuai, Bourbon, Typica, Pache, and other susceptible varieties. The only host is the coffee plant, and the rust doesn't survive in its absence. So these are some important varieties that are damaged by this coffee rust. In Guatemala, it has been present since 1980, with the severe attacks occurring at altitudes of 600 to 800 meters above sea level. In the years 2010 and 2012, an increase of rust was observed in different regions, and attacks at altitudes of 1,500 meters above sea levels. Let's continue. Here we can see the damage that this type of rust causes to the coffee plants, and it mainly affects mature leaves, and when the attack is severe, it can infect young leaves. Depending on the level of damage, it can cause intense defoliation. In addition, as a secondary effect, it prevents fruit filling and ripening, which causes production losses and reduces economic income. We know that it also affects the sustainability of this system. So this way, we don't control and don't manage this type of disease, our systems